Okay. You're up. Thank you. Welcome. This is the February 1 Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person. The board is in person, and tonight we have a quorum. Tom, our chair, is traveling, so is George. I'm not sure if our alternate will be here, but since we have a quorum, we're voting and we're going ahead. The meeting is in Zoom as well as in person, and if you want to call in via Zoom, go to the link on the Kennebunkport site, and you'll find the link to join the webinar. We have two issues on the agenda tonight. The first one, KJ Trudeau Properties, is postponed at the request of the applicant, so we will not be considering that tonight. That leaves us with two applications on the agenda, which are both basically an initial review, meaning that we will have no participation from the public. We only have participation from the public when there is a public hearing, and those will come, for these two applications, those will come at the next meeting probably. If you wish to make a public comment, you can still do that via email to the planning board via the code enforcement office. And we have Mike West now, who's just joining us. Mike, you'll be voting tonight.
Oh, boy.
Yay. Okay. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at them over and see them? I didn't see any corrections. I thought they were fine.
I walked in a couple of seconds late. Jonathan Trudeau, the Glen, that's off tonight.
Yes.
Correct.
Uh-huh. That is
Okay,
off
it's
the
been
agenda.
real.
You can go home
Love
now.
seeing you all.
So can I have a motion then to approve the minutes?
So I'm going to approve the minutes.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor? Scott?
In favor?
Larry?
In favor?
Ed?
In favor.
Mike?
In favor?
Oh, I'm in favor, so the minutes are approved. Okay, the first item then on the agenda is item 221201 Woodland Drive, Duncan McDougal, and I believe that Duncan is avoiding the cold tonight and staying home and coming in via Zoom, but we have, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good evening, my name's Tom Schoening. I'm the attorney for Duncan McDougal, Coastal Creations, and the owner, BCD Woodland LLC.
Okay. So this is an initial review of the final subdivision application. Would you like to summarize it?
I'm going to let Duncan take the lead on summarizing it.
Okay, can we get Duncan up? And I forgot to ask how many people are online.
There are 7 attendees.
7 attendees, okay. That includes Duncan?
Yes. I
Okay.
tried to come over earlier and we didn't take.
Oh. Okay,
I'll try again.
okay.
He's now a panelist, so if he turns off his.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay. Basically, this is the final application, after we did the sketch plan and then the initial application to go ahead and try to split Lot D of the Woodland Drive subdivision into 2 buildable lots. And we have provided the surveys and septic designs, letters from the fire chief, etc.
is there more?
More what? I'm sorry.
Is there more description?
I might be able to just provide a small amount more.
Okay,
Did you all receive the survey of the lot, the proposed lot split in the materials, in the application?
yes,
So you can see this is a lot on an old subdivision plan from the 80s. And there's a note on that plan that said any further division of any lot on this plan must go through the town approval. So that's, it's an application for a lot split. It's not a full subdivision application per se, but because it's a lot shown on a town-approved subdivision plan, the applicant is before you for approval.
okay. Well,
Yes, I apologize. We also have the, the engineered road design, which we had submitted before with the initial. We have the surveys with the proposed and the as-is. We have the 1980 subdivision survey in there. Letter, showing that the owner, BCD Woodland, hired me and has me as the authorized agent, and the deeds showing they own the property, et cetera.
I believe that deed also basically takes out a restriction on dividing the lot, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
There used to be a restriction, that subdivision, where they restricted it from being divided into more than 2 lots, but all the owners of the lots in that subdivision executed a release that's recorded with the Registry of Deeds to terminate that restriction that lots could be divided into more than 2.
Is that in the actual deed that was submitted?
No, this is back in the chain of title. That restriction's no longer on the deed.
I know it's described in the application, the removal, but it wouldn't hurt to cite in the application where that is in the Registry of Deeds.
We can certainly cite it, but we don't want to have it distract. It was an old restriction that said it, prevented people from dividing it into like 3, 4, 5, but that it's no longer has any legal significance because it's been released. So we can submit it if you'd like to see it, but it has no like legal bearing on the locus or the property.
The current deed we do have states that this could be divided once with planning, or, appropriate approvals.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe you've also asked for 4 waivers as we went through that. And those waivers are the high-intensity soil survey, the tree survey, the traffic study, and the stormwater management plan.
Correct.
Right. Well, the only question I have on this is that Tom had noted that you needed to change the proposed subdivision name to Lot D Woodside Road, but I noticed in the final application, you're calling it Lot D Woodland Road.
That's correct.
Woodland
At the
Drive.
last meeting, and Werner was there and I was there, it was agreed that that was a typo,
Okay,
and it's still Woodland Drive, and we all went, Werner said that the planning board didn't have the ability to force us to change the name. That was actually a typo. I changed it. I think I had just originally split the lot, and then I changed the name to the Lot D Woodland Drive for the
Okay.
proposed subdivision name, because we're only trying to subdivide that one lot.
okay, so that's the final name then, Lot D Woodland Drive.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I have no other questions on this. Ed?
No questions.
Okay, Larry?
Well, so I just had one question. So, so are you still planning to have wells, or are you going to tie into the water main?
At the moment, we're still working on wells because that road, South Main Street, had just been paved, and they're not very happy about us wanting to cut into that road.
Okay.
So we had sort of tabled that because of the expense, and I'm still working with the water district, et cetera, on that. So for the moment, we're still trying to go with wells.
So, okay. So is the decision whether to go with wells or to tie in the water main, how is that affecting your schedule?
It's not really.
Okay.
It won't affect us either way.
Okay. So, there are techniques to, bore under the main street to tie into the main without tearing up the entire road there. I mean,
Yeah, but again, that becomes excessively expensive for the property owner, so.
Okay.
You can't really tap a water main without having an open trench. It's very difficult, as far as I know.
Well, I don't know where the water main is, but there definitely are techniques to tunnel under, and if the water main is on one side of the road, then all you need is a manhole to access it, make the tie-in. There are many, if the water main is steel, there's lots of sort of so-called hot tap techniques. If it's high-density polyethylene, I'm not quite sure about that, or PVC, but I'm just saying they're depending on your economics, you may want to take a look at tying into the water main.
Okay.
If that's on the opposite side of the road, though,
Yeah,
from
you can-
Yeah.
Woodland Drive. would
It is.
that
It's on
eventually
South Main
make a-
Street on the opposite
Make a
side.
dip in the road eventually.
No, there's techniques available to bore under the road without disturbing the road surface, is all I'm saying. You just may
Okay.
want to take a look at it.
I will take a look at that.
My chipmunks should know that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a contractor somewhere in New England that can do this. I mean, I've seen this many cases in other applications, but I know that if you can detail the actual tie-in, and it's easier for steel than it's gonna be for plastic, I think, but still, I know there's bound to be a technique out there. And it's the boring under the road. So depending on the location of the pipe, you may wanna, it might be worth spending a couple of days talking to a few contractors, just to see how that tie-in technique compares to the cost of the wells.
So can I just jump in here? My sense is that you're offering this out of courtesy,
Yeah.
to share professional knowledge, but that our consideration here, we can certainly deliberate this application
Oh, yeah,
with
sure.
wells, and
Sure, oh, yeah.
that can be done after.
Duncan's
The
working
fact
on
for
that
the
with
long
the
term.
select board too, on the water versus.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
and where the cost is allocated and shared among the other owners perhaps, and I know there's a lot of considerations, but I just didn't want to send a message that said that needs to be resolved
Oh, no.
in the time frame of this application.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm just saying,
yeah.
it might be worth taking a look at
I
it.
worry that,
Oh, no.
Duncan's
I can
on
see
it.
the
They want to
worry
do
beads
anything they
coming on.
can to make,
yeah,
make these two
okay, so it's just
homes have
offered in the
water.
spirit of
Yeah,
shared
thank
shared
you.
information.
That's all I
I
got.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, just one, and that is, were you making it a private road, and it's managed by the homeowners, and there's an existing HOA?
Duncan, you want to jump in that, or you want me to go for it?
What we know is originally there was a Woodland North homeowners group, but that was administratively dissolved a long time ago based on the fact that no one ever built a house in here.
So would you
And
folks be the only
that's as
folks?
far as we have gotten with that part of it.
How many people on that road then?
There are 3 other lots other than us.
And so the deed to those 3 lots, in each deed, there's a road maintenance agreement provision that by virtue of owning one of those lots, you have to share maintenance costs with the other lot owners. So that serves as the road maintenance agreement, but the actual status of like the homeowners association as an independent nonprofit organization is very unclear. And I've reached out to a law firm that set that up. It's Durwood Parkinson from back in the day, and it's kind of no one knows really. I mean, all lot owners just have to contribute towards maintenance. But
And it's
this
in the deed,
applicant's,
yeah. Thank you.
yeah,
How do we assure ourselves, though, that this lot, when it has a home on it, is accessible by the fire department in the wintertime?
Duncan, is that part of the fire department letter that you received?
As far as plowing for the winter,
Yes, sir.
that will be on the owners of the property.
Of the lot, of the,
I can't remember.
of the
I'm
2
sorry,
lots,
Hold on.
of your 2
Was this-
lots.
Was the town gonna plow this road if we had
No.
made it the 20-foot wide
No,
road that they wanted?
wasn't it, I mean,
No.
20 years
That
ago.
would be on the
20
responsibility
years
of the
ago, maybe.
homeowner at that point, to have it plowed for the emergency access.
And we'll capture that. I don't know if we'll do it as a condition or certainly as a part of the findings of fact, that'll be the
Owners will
case.
privately have road maintenance agreement language in place in their deeds
Yes.
to share road maintenance, including plowing. Yeah, that's common. And
Yep.
And that is from Main Street all the way up to the
Yeah,
turnaround Hammerhead,
This is the
right?
last, these are the last 2 houses on the street, so
Yeah, but I
yes.
thought there was one on the other side too. There was lots.
There's no other homes currently built. These will be the first 2.
Right, but there's lots,
And-
right?
There are lots.
This is
Right.
the very last property
those-
on the right.
Those people are
So
not plowing the street
drive-
now.
It would be plowed
Right.
far enough for the one on the left
All I
also.
want to say is I want to give approval to this
Yeah.
contingent on that street being plowed.
Once the houses go up.
Yeah,
Because I wasn't.
whether it's shared or not.
Yeah.
Call it like a
Yeah.
pro rata.
They can pay it all or not, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
As long as
right.
it gets, and I guess I was a bit trying to understand the 20-foot width. Because we've got, I know with 3 houses, 3 lots, you need, well, here we've got 2 plus the 3 that haven't been built on yet. So does that mean there's 5, so it needs to be 20, or will need to be 20 the next time somebody puts a house on one of those 3 lots?
What we were told is if a third permit was pulled, at that point, the road would need to be 20 feet. So we just
Okay, so it's,
decided rather than waste time trying to build 16, we would just build it at 20 at this point.
okay, so it's going up at 20, okay. I just wasn't sure, with the requirement with our current code, is it the potential, or it actually has to be the third active permit is the one that triggers the need?
It's the third active permit, but I think Duncan has already indicated they're going to build it at 20.
Okay,
So it gets a little tricky because you've got two standards that we work with, right? We have our private road standard, which is what we use in the site plan applications, right? And then you have your subdivision regs, which has, a whole other, different set of road standards. Now, it's not uncommon, and we've seen it over the years where applicants have come in and have proposed a 20-foot width for subdivision roads. And so having 20 feet of traveled width is consistent with what, past boards have approved for subdivisions.
but you still, at the end of that, need something for either a hammerhead or a turnaround to get the largest vehicle.
Correct, and I think,
Right.
and that's been addressed by the chief.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah, it's in that road. One of the surveys show the hammerhead at the end that was large enough for the fire truck turnaround that the chief provided us.
right, but that wasn't all on the lots, these lots. It looked like it went over into one of the other lots.
It was in the right of way.
But just being in the right of way is good enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Other questions?
Yeah, I know there were 2 different ones that cited the town reference for wildlife and habitat and national historical sites. And was that the comprehensive plan, or is that a actual source that's citable, the town website? It just seemed kind of an interesting place for me to cite wildlife habitat and historical buildings.
Well, under the subdivision regs, there has to be a wildlife survey. And
Right, but in the write-up, it was noted that they were using the comprehensive, or the town website as a reference that was done. And it just seemed kind of curious to me.
So one of the things, remember with this application here and why we don't get into a full-blown use of the subdivision regs, because we're only reviewing the modification that's in front of you, so it's not a full-blown, it's not a full-blown subdivision review. It's limited to the scope of this division. But what we did in assisting Duncan is that we provided him with information that this board was interested in, that were similar documents that were done as part of the most recent update of the comp plan. And so that's what, that was information that we provided.
Just the way it was typed up in the submission, just reference town website for wildlife habitats, and that seemed kind of an interesting reference to me.
Yeah, and that's a static map that was developed using state resources, and so that's data that's provided by the state. And we had, as part of the comp plan process, had taken that state data and essentially produced some, local reference maps that are part of the comp plan.
Okay. And then I was trying to relocate, I thought there was another waiver that was being asked for the erosion and sediment control plan, but I don't know if that's part of the stormwater plan. I was trying to find where I found that when I was reading through it, and I can't,
Our excavator is certified by the DEP with soil and erosion control methods for construction, and that's what we've used before on other projects.
but wasn't sure if a waiver was required for that or not, no.
I didn't think we did. I think we decided that that would be good enough because the
Yeah.
lots were already been cleared
Yeah.
and partially. And he's only working basically in the areas that
That
were
were
cleared
cleared.
already.
Yeah, and I understood that for the tree survey and the high-intensity soil survey, the traffic study, and
Right.
stormwater, that made sense to me, but I thought there may be an additional waiver required for the erosion and sediment control plan.
There are some ENS notes on the plan that
that's
was
very
done
good.
by Walsh for, for the road profile. So there's some notations there regarding ENS measures.
Okay, and that's good enough, and it doesn't require a waiver. Okay. That's it?
That's it? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. My question is, do we have to approve these waivers again, since we already started to approve them? We voted preliminary approval of the
Yeah.
waivers.
It would be good to just, for the board to reaffirm that, for the final application.
Okay. I'll make a motion then to reaffirm the approval of the 4 waivers, the high-intensity soil survey, the tree survey, the traffic study, and the stormwater management plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ed?
Yes, I agree.
I agree. Larry?
I agree.
Scott?
I agree.
Mike?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, then that is approved. And I think we have to do a final approval of the preliminary plan, or this is the final plan. This
I
is
think
the
we need to
final.
to find it complete.
Yes.
I would move that this application is complete.
I'll second that.
Okay. Ed?
Yes.
I'm in favor.
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
Okay. So the person who's going to write up the findings of fact of that is Tom Boak, and he's away right now. And so he'll have to wait till he comes back, but you don't have to be here for the reading of the findings of fact.
So, just a reminder, this is just so you've just declared the application complete, so the next step would be the scheduling of the public hearing,
Shoot,
for this.
That's right.
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason Tom didn't have to do that tonight. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm
So the
sorry.
board could set the public hearing date.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question right there?
Sure.
Is it possible to have the public hearing and the reading of the findings of fact occur at the same meeting based
We
on
often do.
availability of Tom?
We often do.
Okay.
It's up to the board, but,
Okay.
that's not atypical.
It's a big homework assignment, those findings of fact, so I appreciate that.
Yep.
So,
No, quite often we do that for an application now. Just makes it easier for the applicant. They don't have to wait another 2 weeks to get the findings of fact.
Thank you.
Unless there's a reason not to. So.
Right, and just to reassure the public, that would be contingent on any issues surfacing that are unanticipated at this point. Again, this is the 3rd time it's come before the board, and feels like we've wrung it out, but there's always that chance, and that's why we're having another public hearing, so.
Well, we did have some of the public pipe up at the first public
Absolutely,
hearing.
yeah.
And,
And we may again.
Public is welcome to bring any questions and so forth. So we'll schedule a public hearing then for 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah, from today, at the next meeting. And hopefully we'll have a finding of fact by then unless, Tom gets captured in Mexico.
So is that
and
the
they don't know the yards. All right, so,
Yes, that's correct.
That-
The 15th.
So
We're done.
15 February.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
okay. The next next and last issue on the agenda, unless Warner brings up something, is the Mill Road subdivision, and this is a preliminary subdivision application, and it's the initial review. And if you'd introduce yourself and summarize the application.
Sure. My name is Michael Tadamo Wieland. I'm a civil engineer with Teradyne Consultants. To my left is Patrick Dooling. Patrick is the owner of the parcel and of the project, and he is the applicant under the name Feng Farms. Previously, the owner, we were here for sketch plan. At the time, the owner was Jeff Bowley, and Jeff has sold the project to Patrick, and Jeff is continues on with the project in a consultant role, and he's just out of town today. So you'll see him at future meetings. So the three of us are working on this together. Is this okay? I can set this up on a tripod somewhere else, but
Yeah, we can also, I can bring up, I don't have that, but I can bring up your other plan.
Sure, you can bring up the
on the
subdivision
screen.
plan digitally if you
Yep.
want, Warner.
Yep.
So, you'll recall, the board will recall that we were before you for a sketch plan review back in August. So August 17th, we were here. This is a parcel, it's a 75-acre parcel. It's located at 262 Mills Road. The parcel, it's completely undeveloped. It's forested. Its features include some rock outcroppings. It's sort of hummocky in areas. There are wetlands in the low areas, and sort of exposed rock in some of the higher areas. Kind of typical from other properties in this part of town, in my experience. The area within 500 feet of Mills Road is in the Goose Rocks district, and the remaining area of the parcel is in the free enterprise zone. There are, and I mentioned this last time at the sketch plan, there's a lot going on here from a sort of a natural resources and habitat perspective. There were spotted turtles. We prepared a spotted turtle assessment or study on the parcel. There was one turtle located in the far northwest corner. There are some significant vernal pools out here, and there's 15 acres of wetlands. So the design for the proposed 13-lot subdivision really takes all that into account and avoids that habitat to the extent we could. I'll mention that when you run the net residential density calculations on this parcel, it'll tell you it can support 49 lots. But clearly, just sort of the nature of this lot would make that impossible. So, I'm sorry, it would be 53 lots with a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size. So the plan before you is a cluster subdivision. It allows us to sort of fit the lots in areas where we have upland, and it avoids wetlands. There is a moderate amount of wetland impacts proposed, about on the order of about 5,000 square feet of the 15 acres of wetland that are on the parcel. So we feel like we've minimized impacts to wetlands and other habitat to the greatest extent that we could. The proposed road is about 16 1,650 linear feet in length. It will be constructed to the minor street standard. There's a cross-section in the plan set. Curb and sidewalk on one side, and gravel shoulder and ditch on the other side. The plan calls for streetlights along the road, on the side of the road with the sidewalk. In general, we were going for a look and feel similar to the Binnacle Hill developments that Bally Builders developed a few years back. So road section and streetlights are very similar to that. We are asking for 2 waivers from the board, as I've outlined in the cover letter of December 16th. The first one, which I've already mentioned, is the dead-end road length. So that 1,650-foot dead-end road exceeds the maximum allowed in the ordinance, but that is a standard that can be waived by the board, and I'm familiar with other projects that has been waived for. This parcel just is, because of the amount of frontage on Mills Road, it's impractical to create some sort of loop and to connect. There are no other adjacent roads to connect to, so we're sort of stuck with a dead-end road. And again, to develop the lots in a way that sort of minimizes impacts to the resources, we have this 1,650-foot dead-end road that we're asking for approval for. The second waiver we're asking is another one that's not too unusual, and that's to increase the side slopes on the road from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1, just in wetland areas. So where we are crossing wetlands with the road, once you get beyond the shoulder, typically you'd be at a 3-to-1 slope, so 3 feet horizontal for every 1 foot vertical. We're asking to steepen that up to 2 feet horizontal to 1 foot vertical, and that allows us to shrink the footprint of wetland impact. It's a strategy we use on almost every project where we are impacting wetlands with a road. The lots will be served by individual wells and septic systems. We've engaged Longview Partners, they delineated wetlands and natural resources. They've also dug test pits to confirm suitability for septic on each of the lots. We do have through the design phase of the project, we have tweaked the lot lines a little bit, and we do need to go out and confirm a couple more test pits on 1 or 2 lots. But given the nature of the soils throughout the rest of the proposed development area, we're confident that we'll be able to achieve a passing test pit on each of the lots. One other thing I should mention, so again, 75 acres, 13 lots. The remaining land, the open space, will be about 55 acres. So in fact, the majority of this parcel will be preserved as open space. There will be a homeowners association created. The homeowners association will maintain the road, they will maintain the stormwater management infrastructure, and the open space will primarily be for preservation. So certainly no real active recreation is planned. It's pretty sensitive habitat where most of the open space is located sort of away from Mills Road. There is a man-made pond located right adjacent to Mills Road. So if you're pulling into this development, right on the right-hand side, there's a man-made pond there with sort of a grass area around it. That's an area where there may be some more active recreation, and by active recreation, I mean maybe a couple picnic tables or something like that, so folks can go out and sort of have a picnic or something like that in that area. So the homeowners association documents is something that the applicant's working on and will be provided in a subsequent submittal. So tonight we're thankful that you've had us to present our preliminary application. We're hopeful to schedule a public hearing next and move this forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions that arise. Thanks.
Could you say something about the green areas, the light green areas that are on this chart? And
Sure, yeah. So this is...
just see they're different sizes,
Yeah,
different
sure.
locations, just so maybe to orient us. We haven't had a site walk of this.
Right, so, yeah, I should have explained that. So this is sort of an illustrative plan.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And the green areas are lots, that's it. So there's a yellow line around the entire parcel. This is the entire subdivision boundary.
Yep.
And there are, you can see in a gray hatch, the sort of the road coming in off Mills Road to a cul-de-sac. And then there are some, each lot is also delineated in this same yellow sort of line. This is a property line. And so, and each lot is hatched in this green color. So the light green is lots, everything else, which is, as you can see, this is overlaid on an aerial photograph, so everything else is just forested. So you can also see the 55 acres that's forested.
So I was just struck by the differences in the sizes among the lots and wondered if there was something you wanted to say specifically about that, or just that's just the way it is, and the ones that are detached, if you will.
Yeah, so...
What's going on there?
Sure. So the majority of the lots are in the range of, I think the smallest lot, bear with me here, I'll give you a range of lot sizes. So the smallest lot is a 0.65 acres in size.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of the lots, 12 of the lots are within that 0.65 to probably about an acre and a half. The lot 8, which is the one in the back, that one is over 7 acres in size. That's one that the applicant intends to keep and develop for himself. It'll just be a single house lot. It's not intended to be split in the future or anything like that. Okay. It's just to have a larger lot. Some of that area is developable, but we decided not to extend that road further in order to develop more lots. We thought it made sense to stop the road where we have, and that lot will just be a big lot. The vast majority of it will, of course, remain forested, but it'll be owned in fee by.
But this is a
By
lot
lot owner.
right up on Mills Road, for example. That's a house lot.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will there be a restriction on further division?
So, as with every subdivision, I think if there were further division, it would have to come back as a subdivision amendment.
Right.
So that would be.
But you don't plan on putting any restriction in?
I don't think so. I think it would be difficult to divide further, but certainly I think if in the future, if someone decided to do something and could meet the performance standards and of the subdivision ordinance, they could choose to apply for that.
Remind me, I haven't looked at this for a while. Has the fire chief approved the 1,600-foot length of the road?
We've not heard back from the fire chief on that.
Because you not only have a 1,600-foot road there, but one of those lots in the back there, you're going to have a long drive to get to it.
Yes, understood.
So you also hadn't heard about the turning radius and all that that would be required from the fire chief?
So the cul-de-sac was designed with the standard dimensions in the subdivision ordinance.
All right, it's just, we've got a new truck is the only thing, so I don't know if that's reflected in the ordinance.
Yeah, and certainly if it's changed, we're
Yeah.
happy to revise
Yeah,
that.
so, so we've just, so we've just recently, that's one of those pieces that's in process, so we've just received the standard for a 16-foot traveled width. We're in the process, we've made a request, after we reviewed that and the chief was fine with that, we've also, requested a standard for a 20-foot traveled width. I mean, those are two of our, the typical widths that we have. And so, once we have that, we'll be providing that. But it's a work in, I would say that's a work in progress. And, but that'll be something that, the chief will look at, and he'll look at, this in mind, with those truck requirements in
Will
mind.
he consider a long drive into that farthest lot?
So one thing, keep in mind that, for fire suppression, this project, has
Sprinkled.
proposed within it, 13D systems, that each house will be required to have a 13D for suppression. The chief, we don't typically, add additional standards for single driveways, as it relates to,
Right.
Apparatus. That's not something that the town has typically done in terms of requiring a private driveway to meet a full, standard for a ladder truck that's designed to access the colony.
But the planning board could, if they felt it was necessary.
I suppose that's something that, the board could consider. I don't know that I'd recommend going down that path, but,
Yeah, I don't want a ladder truck coming to my house
yeah.
And turning around.
and turning around. Yeah, if they want to leave it there, that's good. We can play on it. That's fine with me.
Right.
Well, you might want it if you're on the second floor and your house is burning.
Well, that's why I got a single floor house and it's all made out of concrete.
Well, that's something I think we'd like to hear about in considering a waiver of the road length.
Absolutely, yeah, I could understand that.
I wish you'd talk a little bit more. You're in a very sensitive area. You're very close to the shoreline. You're in a boggy wetland, which drains into a saltwater marsh with a lot of spartina and rare bog plants, not to mention the spotted turtles and the salamanders and so forth. It goes to say that fertilizers and pesticides should never be used in a situation like this. But I was just wondering how the stormwater management system will affect the vernal and non-vernal pools in its wetlands. I mean, can the catch basins be used for wildlife? Are you going to be draining some of these pools?
Sure.
What do you have?
Great questions. So the vernal pools are up in the northern, mostly in the northern part of the site, and I'll point to them. These are all identified on the plans that you have as well, but there are these sort of gray areas here. The runoff from the developed areas will really be draining in a southerly direction. So those undeveloped areas that contain the vast majority of the wetlands and the habitat won't be receiving runoff from the roadway or from these lots. Because of the scope of the project and the size of the project, it does require a stormwater permit from the DEP. And it will also require a wetland impact permit from the DEP and from the Army Corps of Engineers. So those are two permits that we are pursuing now, and in a perfect world, approval from those agencies and approval from you folks all happens at the same time. But as far as, we have designed a stormwater management system that meets DEP Chapter 500, which treats stormwater from the roadway impervious areas for pollutants. And we've done it with, there's going to be 2 BMPs constructed on this project. So one of them, which will be located up near the cul-de-sac, will be what we call an under-drain soil filter. So it kind of looks like I'll call it a pond, although it's dry 24 hours after a rain event. So it's a depression that collects stormwater, and that stormwater filters through an engineered soil media, and then it gets piped out through underdrain into the surrounding area, back into the wooded area, where again it can filter its way into the ground. The other BMP is a forested buffer, and that's located down behind lot 10 and 11. So runoff from the road, from that section of road, will be collected, discharged to a level spreader, and a level spreader it's a stone structure that turns essentially concentrated water back into sheet flow. So water will pool up behind a stone structure and then sort of filter through the stone into sheet flow and then flows across a forested area. And that's how we design forested buffers. The buffer will be deed protected, so and marked in the field, so it can never be modified or can't be cut or anything like that. So those are the 2 stormwater BMPs that we've designed to meet the state stormwater management standards. And then in addition to that, we've looked at the town also has a standard for peak rates of runoff, which is kind of you probably deal with that one regularly, where if you've got so much water running off the property onto your neighbor's lot today, you can't build something that increases that rate of runoff. So we've also the 2 BMPs, as well as sort of the direction that we're sending stormwater, mitigates for the development here. And so we have submitted a stormwater management report that shows that the peak rate of runoff isn't increasing as it leaves the site as well.
So that second BMP doesn't have a filter in it, you're just spreading it basically over the forest floor?
That's right. And frankly, those are, that's what we try to design with. They're in my opinion, they're the best type of BMP, and it's because they require very little maintenance. If a stormwater BMP is only as good as the maintenance that it receives. So a forested buffer really creates a natural condition where water can flow in a sheet flow condition at a slow rate. It gets filtered by the vegetation and can infiltrate into the soil. So they work very well.
Can you say something about what maintenance is required and how that will be managed?
Sure.
And you're talking to someone who's pulled ample amounts of oak leaves out of culverts in our neighborhood, so.
Right. So the entire stormwater management system, there are a few catch basins. There are some culverts under the roadway here. There's the level spreader that I talked about that's upstream of the forested buffer, and then there's the underdrain soil filter.
Right.
All of those will need maintenance. The maintenance responsibility will fall to the homeowners association, so that'll be enshrined in the homeowners association documents that we will submit. In addition, so
you're telling me who, but how about how?
sure. So the homeowners association they'll have to typically they'll engage someone.
Okay.
So they engage a professional, and that person will follow. We have, me as the civil engineer who designed this, I've developed a inspection and maintenance plan for this system, which I believe has been submitted. I'll have to double check that,
I
but.
didn't
Sort of
see
part
it.
of the plan.
No, okay, so that'll follow. And so that'll outline when each component of the system needs to be inspected, and it'll dictate what is the inspector looking for. So for instance, a culvert, is it clogged? Is it free-flowing? Does anything need to be repaired there? The soil filter, for instance, it should be mowed, a couple times a year. The surface of the soil filter, no heavy equipment should be allowed on it. If any sort of vegetation, like a small tree or a sapling or something starts to grow, it's got to be removed. The rate of drawdown, so once it fills up, so say you get a 1-inch storm, which is a pretty good storm, which is what these systems are designed for. That'll fill it up, and that's supposed to draw down over 24 to 48 hours. If that's no longer happening, then you've got to investigate why.
Probably too
And that-
quickly or too slowly is a problem, right?
Right, that's
Yeah.
right. So it could be that it's clogging, and in those, there may be too much sediment in it, and in those instances, they scrape off the top layer of filter media,
And
of
again,
soil, and they replace it.
So, yeah, I'm trying to avoid having you teach me about all of this because that's not going to happen. But I'm thinking about the practicality of turning this over to a bunch of homeowners. And I liked what you said about it being contracted. And I was just trying to get a feel for, it sounds like there's a probably yearly or better routine inspection.
Yes.
And there's probably a yearly preventive maintenance or leaf clearing.
That's correct. And-
Soil rejuvenate, I don't know what it is, but that'll be spelled out in a document that is then in turn called out by the homeowners
It
association.
will, and to give it a little teeth.
Yeah.
This is required by the DEP. And because, again, the DEP recognizes that BMPs are they only work if they're maintained. And the DEP has what they call a recertification program. So the homeowners association will be required to keep a log of all the inspections and maintenance that occur and submit that to the DEP every 5 years. So that gives a little teeth.
So for our purposes, we'll be looking for something in the draft homeowners plan, what's it called?
Yeah, the homeowners.
Agreement.
Yeah, the
Agreement.
declaration.
The declaration, thank you. One of
And
the
so
covenants.
the responsibility will be spelled out in the declaration, and the inspection and maintenance plan
Yeah.
will be an attachment to that document.
Perfect, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we've, heard of and seen, with, plans like this, I think if you're looking for, kind of like, what are the practical, implications of maintenance for things like this, it's, as Mike is saying, it's, making sure the culverts are clear, nothing is clogged, and we've seen some, this is really with older subdivisions, over time, you have that sediment built up, because that's really what's coming in. You're getting the stormwater that's coming in, it's carrying, a certain level of sediment, and that's the whole idea of it, is that it's gonna drop, it's gonna drop there. And then just over time, that sediment has to get, dug out,
It's
so
like the
that.
river mouth, yeah.
Right, yeah, I mean, that level, that initial design, elevations have to be, restored, so.
Right, and I'll bet, you would have a guess as to, I'll bet I don't have to do that every year, but, I might have to check it every year.
Yeah.
Right,
this type of-
And the accountability for it clearly defined that it is part of the homeowners, so all of them are on the hook for making sure it gets done or paying for it, or if they get sideways of the DEP, they're all accountable.
What happens if they don't get recertified?
I don't know. I think the DEP has the ability to, certainly to fine them. I don't know if they've gone far enough to take that step. I don't know. I don't have experience with a
I think it's going
subdivision.
to hurt their property values, I think is how it ends up.
A waiver.
Wouldn't affect the
Yeah.
property value so much as I should think a fine would be much more effective.
I would disagree.
I don't see how it would affect the property values.
Well, I think what's going to happen is you're going to start having damage
Yeah.
to the infrastructure.
I mean, the
that's
practical
the
reality is
practical.
you're gonna have, I mean, you're gonna wind up with water in the road.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's the,
Undercutting the road, or
Right.
Yeah.
this type of thing.
I don't know that you'd have it undercut, but I mean, you'd probably start seeing some flooding in the roadways, I mean, it'd become apparent,
Obvious.
if there were, if there were
And that's what I
issues.
mean about,
Yeah.
value.
Okay. I think given that, I'm wondering, would it take a waiver, or is there a provision in the subdivision regs where you could reduce that surface area by taking out all the sidewalks? Do you have to
I was
have the
going to ask
sidewalks
about
in
that
there?
too. You really sure you want sidewalks? I mean, I know the reg asks you for them, but we've routinely granted waivers to not have them and
Yeah, I think that the applicant
wants them.
wants them. Yep,
That's the look and feel they want.
exactly. Yep. So roadway, grass esplanade with streetlights and sidewalk.
Smaller lots. It's kind of a
Interesting.
half-acre lots. It's kind of a different,
Yeah, but they're not, there aren't that many lots, and, I mean, with kids, they don't stay on the sidewalk anyway, they ride their bikes up and down the road. The only thing I can think of is people pushing carriages, but even then, with the number of lots you have, it's expensive to put in sidewalks
and maintain them.
and maintain them.
Yeah,
And-
but that's their choice if they want to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
If they want to spend the money, they can spend the money.
And it's not a big driver on the impervious
Well,
compared to 75 acres.
yeah, but it adds to the impervious.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all the questions. Are those your questions?
I'm doing this on the fly, really, but
Okay.
say again
We'll let you keep
what you
going.
told me on streetlights? You are going to have streetlights?
Yes.
And that's a plural. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, so again, they're on the plan.
I'm sure they are, but I was just sort of off the top. What,
Run up the road.
Yeah, they're about every 100 feet or so.
wow.
I could count them.
Well,
Do we have a lighting plan?
you got over 1,000 feet, so you're going to have 10 or 12 of them.
Yeah.
Are
Well,
these-
maybe
are these
not that many.
Footlights or
I
are
think
they?
you've got, I
Yeah,
don't remember that many. 2,
5,
3.
6, I'm counting 7.
Yeah.
7
So on the order of
foot.
7. I may have missed one.
And they'll meet the lighting requirement. They'll be
Yes,
done.
yeah, and there'll be a decorative fixture. In fact, it's the same fixture that was proposed and approved at Pinnacle Hill.
Are you going to, in the homeowners association, restrict the lighting that they can have on driveways and so forth? That can make a big difference in wetlands and wildlife.
I haven't discussed that with the applicant.
It's something to
we'll discuss
consider
it.
because we're losing things like firefly populations and so forth when people have a lot of lighting around at night in their backyards and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, beneficial insects. We don't care about the ones that bite.
Well, some of the good ones might eat those, though. So.
Well, the bats. I mean,
Yeah.
if you keep the lighting down, you'll have lots of bats, and they can eat 1,000 mosquitoes a night, each bat, so.
So we ready for a motion?
So I've got a
No,
couple more
we have other
questions.
people who might
Yeah.
have questions.
Okay.
So you go ahead, Mike.
Right, along the line we were talking with the HOA, that whole kind of back area is gonna be common, right? And because there is the turtles and the salamanders and that back there, I know you said, well, we don't plan on doing anything with that, but is there a way to lock that down in the HOA that they don't do that?
Yeah, you can restrict any trails through there.
Yeah, so
Any ATVs or snowmobiles, you definitely want to restrict
Correct.
those.
Yeah, so I was just looking for something similar to that in the HOA, seeing that is a sensitive area. Let's lock it down in the HOA or the agreement or declaration or whatever this document may be to limit that impact.
We will spell that out. Yeah, that's a good point.
Also noticed that there was no tree survey or tribal check here. And I was just wondering why that was different than other ones we've looked at.
So we did conduct a tree survey. There are very few, what the ordinance defines, I think they call them significant trees, or so, I think it's 24 inches at diameter breast height. They are shown on the plan.
Okay, I
This-
didn't see the
Yeah,
survey in the documentation, I guess.
Oh, there's no, well, no, we
reference to
we
it.
surveyed them.
Okay.
My surveyors went out and located them. This lot at some point, I believe, was harvested, was cut, because not, a lot of the trees, like I said, there are very few greater than 24 inches. But they are shown on sheet C 2.0.
Okay.
Yeah, I suspect you have a combination of, past timber harvests plus, fire, 47 fire.
47. I just
Oh,
remembered on
likely
the
went
one that we did last time, it wasn't 2 weeks ago, but a month ago, there was an issue about the tree survey there and just around the lot areas that were going to be developed. And I hadn't seen that here, and I was wondering why,
So-
but if it's been done and they're marked, okay.
Sometimes developers ask for a waiver to just survey the significant trees on the lots and
Yeah.
not on the open space
Right.
area.
Yeah, and so I didn't see that they had done that by, in the, I guess, this submission, I didn't go through every one of
Yeah.
the plans, so if it's been done, excellent. And then the other one we had talked about was, the last time was the tribal, had gone requesting, was there any impacts? And there was a question about Apple Blossom Lane and the report that came back from the folks. I didn't see anything like that in this submission. So is that a standard thing asking for that or not?
Standard to ask for,
Yeah, it's not something that is, it's not something that's spelled out within the subdivision regs, in terms of that type of request. That is it's a typical request that usually coincides with, with the DEP filings as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Army Corps, more specifically, will require us to notify
Okay.
all the tribes in Maine of the project and ask them to let us know if there's
Anything.
any significance or if they have any concerns
Right.
with the project.
Okay, so that'll be part of the core permit.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll provide a copy of that to the town.
And I just noticed on the front under the land information, it had the box check, no pools, or no bodies of water. But we talk about a pond up front and these other pools. I was just wondering why that was checked.
Yeah, well,
So-
to me, those don't meet that definition, I guess.
Is there a
guess if-
standard definition for what a body of water
I mean,
is
your,
then?
your typical bodies of, water are your naturally occurring, if there was a recognized lake or pond or identified, blue line stream, which I don't believe this property has.
Okay, so vernal ponds don't count, and
Vernal
this one up,
pools, no.
and this one up front with the picnic tables doesn't count either.
well, the one up front, I think, is man-made.
It's a man-made
Yeah.
pond.
Right.
Yeah, if
Vernal
it,
pools, yeah, they do count. You have to keep that 250 feet. But man-made ponds are a different,
Different one?
basically.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not, yeah.
I just wondered why we were talking about pools and ponds and check no bodies of water, and it kind of like,
Right.
sounds to me like there's water. But if it's standard that if the man-made's not considered, then that's fine. All right.
yeah, or if it should have been checked, I apologize.
All right, that's all I got.
Larry?
Nope. Okay, well, I appreciate this. I just had a couple of questions. So, I know you have a lot there right next to Mills Road, and then there's a gap between that and the next lot. Is that some trying to drainage channel or something?
There's a wetland
Wetlands in there?
right through
Okay.
there.
All right. And so you're gonna fill some portion, some thousand square feet of wetlands, is that correct?
About
5,000.
about
5,000?
5,000.
So isn't there an upper limit of wetlands that you can fill beyond which you have to get some sort of additional federal permit? Are you at
Army
that
Corps.
limit yet?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
it's
are,
3.
okay. Okay, so
So again, it'll go to the the DEP has an exemption anything up to a tenth of an acre, so 4,300
Okay.
square feet. You
Alright.
don't need a DEP permit. We're above that
okay,
slightly, so we will need a DEP permit. And any amount of wetland impact requires a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. So we'll be going to both of those agencies.
okay, thank you.
And the things, sorry, just to sort of expand a little bit on it, the things they look for is, are we minimizing wetland impacts? Are we doing everything we can to avoid them? Are we doing things like steepening the road slope to 2 to 1 where we cross wetlands, like, which is the waiver that I spoke about earlier? Are we, where we cross a wetland with a road, we design the culverts with an open bottom, so invertebrates can pass through on the soil and that sort of thing. So they have standards for the areas that we are impacting wetlands.
Okay, thank you. And then I was taking a look at this map here, the pre-development watershed map. So, are you gonna add any contour elevations on here? Or not? I mean, I don't know, I was trying to figure out what was where, and the contour elevations, even a few of them would have helped a bit. Is that normal? I don't know.
I guess I don't fully understand. I don't have it with me. Can I come and look?
The contours are on one of the other sheets.
Yeah, maybe
Well, I had a hard
it
time.
should be on there.
I had a hard
Look at it.
time, reconciling, it's pretty detailed, and I feel like this must have come off of a contour map, but the numbers weren't actually on the drawing.
So what's happened to the contours are there, but they're not labeled. So that's something that should be on there, and we'll add it for the
Okay.
next round.
Thank you, that would help.
Yeah,
Thank you, appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then I did appreciate your road cross-section. I did notice there was some millimeter dimensions shown. I didn't understand the correlation between the millimeter sizes and the inches.
In the road section?
Yeah, it was, I got it here. I didn't understand the significance of the millimeter sizes. Let's see here.
Oh,
You're talking about the pavement thicknesses?
Yes.
So
And
the
then the pavement thicknesses in inches seemed correct, but then there was a millimeter shown underneath that which didn't seem to align, so I didn't understand the purpose of the.
So that's a spec. So that's an aggregate size. So for instance, that
aggregate size, okay.
HMA surface pavement, 9.5 millimeters, that's a 9.5 millimeter aggregate size in the
size,
pavement.
yeah.
That's how deep, so, and then below that, the binder pavement has a 19 millimeter aggregate size. And that's just how DOT specs
Okay,
Uh,
so that wasn't. clear
hot
to me, but-
HMA,
Thank
hot
you.
mix asphalt.
All right. So that's it, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I have listed here that we would need a draft HOA. you want 2 waivers. We need DEP and Army Corps of Engineer permits. That's all I have listed. Do we need a review, an engineering review?
So typically, as you all know, we send the stormwater analysis out for review, to our third-party, engineering partners that we use. I always typically like to ask the board if they want to have that done. I don't assume that, and so if the board wishes to have that reviewed, then, then we're happy to pass that along.
I'd like to see it.
I think we would. I'm
Yeah.
questioning whether we want to do it during the preliminary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
wait for
You
the-
want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to do it at preliminary, yep.
Okay. So with those restrictions, if I got the right word,
I mean, I think those are conditions,
Conditions.
or, points, so.
points,
Uh-huh.
noted. Are there other questions? No?
We did provide to Mike just some staff review notes, which we just got to him today, so apologies for the,
It's okay.
the late, review of that. And, I think for the most part, what we saw was a pretty good, application. I think really, some of the things that we noted were some details, that, I don't see as anything of any major significance, so,
Okay,
but.
okay.
And I think we provided that to the board as well. I think you all would have received that today. Again, apologies for the, getting it.
I don't remember.
No, you didn't get it? Okay, we'll make sure the board gets it as well, just for reference.
Okay.
Yep.
So with those conditions, would someone like to make a motion to find the preliminary application complete?
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Ed,
Yes.
I approve.
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 Approved.
Okay. Then we'll find that complete. We will need, you'll get a letter, basically, that says this is approved, but we're looking for an HOA, a draft at least, these 2 waivers that you have for road length and side slopes, the permits from the DEP and Army Corps of Engineers, and we're going to get an ACON review. Okay?
Do we want to state in that HOA what we're looking for specifically? The maintenance of the stormwater, the restrictions on the common area, and was there anything else that we were looking?
Pesticides and fertilizers.
yeah,
and
so-
I think you should look at bird strikes too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but
windows.
be specific what we're looking for in the HOA, I guess, is what I was saying.
I've heard it tonight, so if you
Okay.
put it in the letter, great. If not, I'll make sure it's in
You
there
have the
anyways.
notes on that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be looking for that from
Yep.
you.
And
And then we will be scheduling a public hearing on this, the next meeting, 2 weeks from now. And,
So I, 2 comments, just as it relates to that. One, so typically the board does a site walk, so I think that's a question of whether or not, and it's a tricky time of year to try to schedule a site walk, so,
Not this weekend.
let's do it Saturday.
so it's not a requirement, but it's, something
Yeah,
that I
I'm
just
busy.
point out to the board that it's not uncommon for you all to do a site walk. And then, also, just as a practical matter, while we'll send the stormwater, out to review to Acorn, it's unlikely that I'll get it back in a week. We like to get those things back to, the board and the applicant, 7 days prior. So it's unlikely that we'll have that available
public
for the
hearing?
public hearing.
do you want to schedule the public hearing then for the meeting after that, or do you want to just
That's up to
let
the,
it sit there?
that's
and-
up to the board. I mean, you all could open the public hearing and then continue it,
Yeah.
to the next, meeting, but I think that's also, up to the applicant on what they,
Yeah,
what
we
they
have
want to
time
do.
to-
But you could do either one. You could either, go ahead and schedule the public hearing for the next meeting, open it, and then continue to the next, or you could just set it at, at the next, or the, not the next meeting, but the meeting after.
Well, why don't we schedule the public hearing and then see how it goes?
Okay, yep.
And then, okay, would somebody remind me what you want in the HOA? There was the stormwater management?
It was stormwater management, the wildlife impact at the back, the common area.
Yep,
No
We're-
vehicles.
Yeah, there's some restrictions, so we're not impacting that
okay.
area.
And fertilizers and pesticides, and probably birds in there. It's, again, wildlife impact.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we have a case manager for this one. I don't think
No.
Tom assigned one. Is someone willing to take it on? The initial part is just a letter.
I have no idea what I'm committing to.
You want to commit? I'll help you out with it.
Okay.
All right.
May I ask a point of clarification? So, you mentioned a number of quote-unquote conditions. Draft HOA, which I think we can get you in, not too long. I know the applicant's working on it. The DEP and Army Corps permits, those will be required prior to final approval, is that right? So
Yeah.
preliminary approval can happen and, okay, great, thank you. That was all I was asking.
Okay. All right. You're done then.
Thank you very much.
Until
We'll,
2
we'll,
weeks
so
from now.
we'll see you in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Beside the finding of facts, I know that. What else is a case manager accountable for?
There's no findings for preliminary. There's
Right,
just
but-
a letter. And I
Okay.
can give you some sample
So
letters.
Similar to the one that Nina just sent
Sent
out
out.
a few days
Okay.
ago, for
Yeah,
example.
Let me send you one that Tom sent out recently too.
Okay.
And you'll have a couple of examples.
All right, and that goes out after this meeting, or what's the
Yeah, that can
timing?
go out after this meeting, and it goes out through the town office, basically.
No, hold on, after this meeting or after the
No,
application
so-
is approved?
So the letter goes out to the applicant after you finish the preliminary process. So essentially
okay.
what you're,
So you don't have to do it right away.
yeah.
all right.
So what you're just acknowledging is that you're acknowledging that the board, approved the preliminary application, and it's a written, authorization for them to proceed to the final, to submit a final application.
And the thing is, we're not there yet.
Correct, we're not there yet.
No,
Excellent, got it.
we're at least one meeting away
Yeah,
and likely
okay.
at least two,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
possibly a site walk.
I got just a couple other, I guess, organizational questions or whatever. I noticed there seems to be a difference of what acreage developed versus total acreage is. Because like on the first one tonight, it was all the acreage equaled the acreage being developed. On this one, it was like under 6 acres of the 75. So what's the definition of acreage to be developed?
So it's actually not something that we define, necessarily, within.
It's in every one of them, they put it when they fill out the
Yeah.
forms, and it seems to be rather random what's
Yeah.
put in there, and I'm like, well, is it random and it doesn't matter, or is there a reason that we have a spot there for it?
There's a reason, because in subdivisions, especially a new subdivision, there's a minimum percentage
Right?
of the total acreage that needs to be left undeveloped.
But so what is developed? It's not surface area, right? It's not, is it just the lot itself, or?
Does it mean it's undisturbed?
Now,
No, I'm with you. I'm with
generally
you on this.
speaking, what you have is, and it's more part of the stormwater component, is that, they'll identify the road right-of-way as developed area.
Yeah,
and-
road I got, driveway I got.
Yeah, roads,
House
right.
footprint I got.
Right, and there's usually a
Driveway.
general, a general percentage of the lot that gets identified as, as developed, and that's, kind of that'll be a general size area of like lawn, of lawn area, that is considered, developed. And and I think where we wind up seeing that is that gets translated into the storm, for the stormwater calcs.
Okay. All right, it just seemed to me, again, looking at several of these now, that number seems to be randomly generated.
No, I think you're doing the right thing, though. I think that even though it is not defined specifically, I think the board, hasn't challenged it, or we've challenged it to the point that we have a common understanding. It may be an imperfect one, but I think you're correct to bring it up, and we have this discussion, and we, come to agreement as to how we're going to consider it, and we need to challenge the applications on that basis.
For me, consistency is a big thing,
Who can argue with you?
Yeah,
But-
Of course.
But lots are different.
Yeah,
Lots are different, and like you see with this
Yeah.
one, there's a lot of area that should be left undeveloped.
oh, absolutely. They've done the right thing here, and again, that's why I wanted some protection in the HOA for that area. They were away from it. But again, it kind of hit me as odd on this one. They did a salamander and turtle study. Yet on the one we looked at last time, we hadn't done that. We had just gone out and
before
looked.
this?
Huh?
Just
No,
before?
the last,
No,
where,
they provided that.
well, they
yeah,
had done,
for the
they'd done.
For Woodland?
They hadn't set traps out or anything like that.
Well, that's not that's not a local requirement, so
Okay.
that's, so,
Just depends on who you hire and what they do.
and it depends on what DEP is gonna require.
And what the property looks like, the likelihood of it.
The likelihood of it,
I mean,
so
you're not going to go
potential.
trap in the desert.
Right, but there
or on a
were
ledge.
turtles spotted on the state survey around that property.
Okay. So if they're
But-
accepting that, then, you're going to require them to go out and.
I just didn't know
trap
if there
things.
were, when we were gonna go look at the vernal pools and that, it's just up to whoever's doing it to the level of what you want, or,
It's a DEP
Is it-
requirement, so they're the ones that.
so it's driven by
it's
DEP,
driven-
what's required?
It's driven by
Okay.
DEP.
Okay. I was just, again, looking at the two,
I
comparing,
think what
they
you're
didn't
seeing
look
is that you're seeing different, levels of documentation that consultants will provide.
Right,
Some are going to give a lot more detail in terms of the specifics of what they've done, as part of their investigation. And others are just not going to give that, that same level of detail.
okay. And if it's the detail they're given, not the detail that's required. Because you can always give more.
Sure, yeah.
And I was just, again, looking at Crossum, trying to see the consistency of, well, it was just provided here versus required here.
Our consistency is
required
that
here.
they've done that study and submitted it to DEP. That's,
DEP finds it acceptable.
that's
Yeah.
our,
And that's the big one, that they have to make sure. Okay. All right. Just trying to figure the process. Thank
Takes
you.
a while. Takes a while to get a feel to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if everybody's satisfied.
I'm
and
good.
has no more questions, I'll take one more motion.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that. And everybody's in favor.
Yes,
I'm
please.
sure.
No, 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 no.
You're welcome to stay there.
All
Put your
right.
questions in writing.